The night shift at Mercy General didn't end so much as it dissolved. That was the only way Callie Marsh had ever been able to describe it. Not a clean stop, but a slow unraveling, the fluorescent lights staying just as bright at 7 a.m. as they had been at midnight, the hallways just as loud, the need just as constant. She had been a nurse here for 6 years. She knew the way exhaustion settled into a person, not in the legs or the back, but somewhere deeper, somewhere that sleep didn't quite reach anymore. She was 40 minutes past the end of her shift, still in her scrubs, when she stopped at the vending machine in the main lobby. Her daughter Lily was home with Mrs. Abernathy next door. Lily was 7 and currently obsessed with a specific brand of apple juice that the grocery store 3 blocks from their apartment sometimes had and sometimes didn't, which meant Callie's Tuesday mornings often involved a second stop before she could finally go home and sleep. She was fishing in her pocket for exact change when she heard someone behind her. "Third one from the left is broken," the man said. "It takes your money and just stares at you." She turned. He was standing a few feet back holding a paper cup of hospital coffee, wearing a dark gray jacket that looked like it had been slept in. Late 30s, maybe 40. He had the kind of face that looked like it had once been easy to read and had since learned to be something else. She looked at the machine, then back at him. Which button? B7. She had been reaching for B7. "Thank you," she said, and moved to C4 instead. He nodded and walked away toward the elevator bank. She didn't think about him again. She bought the wrong juice, realized it on the way to the parking garage, stood in the cold for a moment deciding whether it was worth going back, and went home. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, she saw him again. It was in the ICU family waiting room, the small one on the 4th floor with the outdated magazines in the window that looked out at the parking structure instead of the sky. Callie was passing by with a patient chart when she noticed him through the glass panel in the door. Same jacket, different cup of coffee, sitting very still in a way that people only sat when they were trying not to fall apart in a public place. She almost kept walking. She was already late for 2 things. She pushed the door open. "You've been here since this morning," she said. It wasn't a question. She had done her rounds at 6:30. He'd been in this chair then, too. He looked up. He recognized her from the vending machine, she could tell, but he didn't say so. "My father," he said. "He had a stroke 2 nights ago." She sat down across from him, set the chart on the seat beside her. "Has anyone come to update you in the last few hours?" "Someone came at noon. Said he was stable, that was. He checked his watch. 4 hours ago." "I'll find out what's happening." She stood. "Stay here." She came back 15 minutes later with actual information. Stable, no new activity. The attending would be by within the hour. She had also gotten him a better cup of coffee from the nurse's station, not the waiting room machine. He took it without making a big deal of it, which she appreciated. "Thank you," he said. "I'm Owen Mercer." "Callie Marsh." She picked up her chart. "The attending's name is Dr. Figueroa. She's thorough. If she says your father is doing well, you can believe it." She left. He was still there when she passed the room again an hour later, but he was on his phone now, shoulders slightly less rigid, and that felt like enough. She told herself she wouldn't think about it after that. And mostly she didn't. Except she did think about the way he had said his father's name. Not his father's name, actually. He hadn't given it. But the way he said "my father," like it was something he still wasn't sure he was allowed to be worried about. Like the worry itself was a kind of vulnerability he hadn't planned on. She knew that feeling. She had felt it in this same waiting room 8 years ago, the night her mother had come in with chest pains that turned out to be serious, and Callie had sat for 6 hours not knowing, holding a sleeping Lily on her lap even though Lily had only been an infant then, and didn't understand anything except that her mother was tense. 8 years ago, Callie had still been married. She had called her husband, and he hadn't picked up, and she had understood something in that moment that had taken another 14 months to become official. She was very, very tired of thinking about that. Monday came. Owen Mercer was still visiting his father, who had been moved to a step-down unit on the 3rd floor. Callie ran into him in the elevator. "How's he doing?" she asked. "Better. He's complaining about the food, so." A faint smile. "I think that's a good sign." Usually is, she said. The elevator opened. She went left. He went right. She noticed he was wearing a better jacket today and his coffee cup was from the place 2 blocks away, which meant he had started planning his visits instead of just arriving. That was also a good sign, though it wasn't the kind she was paid to monitor. There was a moment, about 2 weeks into his father's recovery, when Owen Mercer asked if he could buy her lunch. He said it simply, standing in the hallway outside his father's room, not in the way of someone who had rehearsed it. Callie paused. I don't usually. It doesn't have to be anything, he said. I just thought you've been kind, and I haven't said thank you properly, and there's a decent sandwich place on Harmon Street. She looked at him for a moment. He looked back without flinching or overselling it. 30 minutes, she said. I have to be back. They walked to the sandwich place on Harmon Street. He ordered turkey and she ordered egg salad, and they sat at a small table near the window, and he told her that he ran a civil engineering firm, that he had come from Seattle to be with his father, that he had grown up in this city and hadn't been back in a while. He said this last part the way people said things they were still deciding how much to explain. She told him about Lily. She always told people about Lily early because it was simpler that way. Some people recalibrated visibly. He didn't. How old? He asked. 7. She's in 2nd grade. She is currently of the firm belief that dinosaurs are better than everything else, including sleep and vegetables. I had a phase like that, he said seriously. It lasted until I was about 12. My mother thought it was never going to end. Does it end? I still have 3 books about the Cretaceous period in my apartment, so. He considered this. Probably not, no. She laughed. It surprised her. She hadn't laughed in a conversation like this. Easy, sideways, unearned, and longer than she could immediately calculate. She was late getting back by 4 minutes. She didn't think about the 4 minutes until much later. His father was discharged on a Thursday. Owen Mercer came to the nurse's station and thanked the staff, shook hands with Dr. Figueroa, and was walking toward the elevator when he turned and found Callie at the supply cart down the hall. He walked back. I'm flying home Sunday, he said. That's good. That your father's well enough. Yes. He was quiet for a beat. Can I give you my number? In case you're ever in Seattle, or I don't know, in case. She had learned to be careful with in case. She had learned it the long way. But she had also sat in that sandwich place on Harmon Street and felt, for 31 minutes, like herself again. Not tired Callie, or single mom Callie, or capable of handling it Callie. Just herself. She gave him her number instead. He looked slightly surprised and smiled. He flew home Sunday. She didn't expect much. She had trained herself not to. But he texted that evening, just safe flight, landed. Hope your week is easier than last week looked. She stared at it for a moment. Then she wrote back, it usually gets harder on Wednesdays. Fair warning. He sent back a small laugh emoji. That was it. But Wednesday he texted again, just how bad is it? And she found herself writing back honestly, which was not something she did as a habit. Not with people she had known for less than a month. This went on for 3 weeks, not every day. Sometimes 2 days would pass and she wouldn't hear anything, and she wouldn't let herself think about it. And then something small would come in. He had seen something in Seattle that reminded him of their conversation about the Cretaceous period. Or she would mention that Lily had declared that volcanoes were now tied with dinosaurs for first place, and he would send something back that made her smile while standing in the break room at midnight while her colleagues were half asleep. She did not tell anyone. She didn't have the language for it yet. It didn't feel like something she should name until it was more solid. It became more solid on a Sunday afternoon when Lily was at a birthday party and Callie was sitting alone in their small apartment eating cereal for lunch because she hadn't had the energy to make anything real. Her phone rang. Owen Mercer. She almost didn't pick up. She was wearing a faded shirt and had been crying earlier for no specific reason, just the kind of crying that happened sometimes when the apartment was too quiet and the week had been long. She picked up. Is this weird? He said. Calling. I keep thinking it might be weird. It might be a little weird, she said. But I picked up. Your Wednesday was bad. It was medium bad. Thursday made up for it. She pulled her knees up. How's your father? Stubborn. Eating better. Won't do his physical therapy unless I call and ask him about it afterward. A pause. He asked about you, actually. He doesn't know me. I mentioned you. A few times, I think. He's perceptive. Another pause, shorter. He said you sounded like someone worth keeping around. The apartment was very quiet. She could hear the refrigerator humming. Owen, she said carefully. I know, he said. I know there's a lot I don't know yet. I'm not trying to make this into something overnight. I wanted you to know that I'm not doing this casually. I don't know how to do things casually. She believed him. That was the strange part. She had learned to be a good reader of people. Years of overnight shifts. Years of watching people under pressure. Years of understanding the difference between what someone said and what they meant. And she believed him. I have a 7-year-old, she said, and I work nights, and I'm not the easiest person to know. I'm not asking for easy, he said. I'm asking for you. She didn't say anything for a moment. Outside, a car passed slowly. The refrigerator hummed. Okay, she said. Then we figure it out slowly. Slowly, he agreed. She smiled at the wall, alone in her apartment in her faded shirt. Tell your father thank you. He laughed, and the sound of it came through the phone warm and real, and she held it for a second before she had to let it go. They figured it out slowly. He flew back in November. He stayed at a hotel near the hospital, which she appreciated, the fact that he didn't assume, and they had dinner twice and coffee once, and he met Lily on the third day accidentally because Callie's backup childcare fell through and she had to bring Lily to a quick errand near the coffee place. Lily shook his hand with profound seriousness and then immediately asked him whether he thought a stegosaurus could beat a triceratops in a fight. Owen thought about it for what appeared to be genuine consideration. Stegosaurus has the spikes, he said, but Triceratops has the horns and probably the weight advantage. I think it depends on terrain. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at her mother. Then back at Owen. He's okay, she said, as if settling the matter. Callie felt something in her chest shift, small and quiet, like a piece of furniture moved 2 inches from where it had been for a long time. He flew back to Seattle. She went back to work. They kept talking. December was a hard month. It usually was. 2 of her patients went into crisis within the same week. Lily got a cold that lasted 10 days and seemed personally offended by every remedy Callie tried. The heat in their building went out for 3 days, and they slept in extra sweaters, and Callie spent 40 minutes on hold with the landlord's office every morning before going in for her shift. She didn't tell Owen most of it. She told him pieces. She was still careful about how much she let in. But one evening, later than she usually called, she said, I'm really tired, not sleep tired, the other kind. He was quiet for a moment. Tell me, he said. So she told him, all of it, the building heat, the landlord, the patients she worried about in the slow hours of the night, the particular loneliness of being the person who held everything together and never quite knowing who was holding her. He listened. He didn't try to fix it. He said, you've been carrying this alone for a long time. Since Lily was born, more or less. Where's her father? Gone. Has been for 6 years. It's not a complicated story. She paused. It's just a long one. He didn't press. He waited. She said, I used to think I was the problem. That I had asked for too much or held on too tight or expected things I wasn't supposed to expect. I spent a long time thinking that. She looked at the ceiling. I don't think that anymore. But it took a while. You're not the problem, Owen said, and the way he said it was not a comfort phrase, not a thing people say. It was an observation, a conclusion he had reached. The way you show up for people, patients, your daughter, strangers in hospital hallways, that's not a person who asks for too much. That's a person who gives more than she should and gets used to not receiving. Her throat tightened. You're allowed to receive, he said. She was quiet for a long time. The heater had finally been fixed that afternoon. The apartment was warm. Lily was asleep in the next room. I'm trying, she finally said. I'm really trying. I know, he said. I can tell. January. Owen flew back. He brought Lily a book about the Cretaceous period with illustrations that were, according to Lily, extremely scientifically accurate and which occupied the following 48 hours almost completely. He brought Callie nothing except himself, which she understood by now was not nothing. He had told her on that November visit that his firm was expanding east, that there was a possibility of a satellite office. He had said it matter-of-factly, not as an offer or a fop, just information. She had filed it away and not asked about it. On the second night of this visit, they sat in her kitchen after Lily was asleep, drinking tea, and he said, "The East Coast office is becoming real. We've been looking at locations. I keep looking at this city." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "That's a big decision." "It is." "You'd be making it for the right reasons?" she asked carefully. "Business reasons." He looked at her steadily. "Among other reasons. But I need you to know that it's not a condition. I'm not saying come closer or I leave. I'm saying I want to be closer because I want to be in your life. Those are separate things." She believed him. She had gotten good at knowing when to believe him. "Okay," she said. "Okay, it makes sense, or okay, something else." "Okay, I believe you," she said. "And okay, I want that too." He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Things were quiet for 2 weeks after he left. Good quiet, the kind she had stopped expecting. Then the phone calls started. The first one she missed. She was mid-shift, hands full. When she listened to the voicemail afterward, she didn't recognize the number, but the voice was familiar in a way that made her stomach drop before she consciously understood why. Her ex-husband. She hadn't heard from him in 4 years. His name was Craig. He had left when Lily was 14 months old, citing, at various points, feeling trapped, feeling unappreciated, and needing to find himself, all of which Callie had eventually translated simply as, he had not wanted to stay. The voicemail was short. He said he'd been thinking. He said he wanted to talk. He said he'd been doing some work on himself, and he thought it was time to reconnect, not just with Callie. He said not just with Callie in a tone that was almost careful, like he was aware it was loaded, but with Lily. Callie listened to it twice, standing in the parking garage at the end of her shift, keys in hand. She deleted it and drove home. He called again 2 days later. She let it go to voicemail again. This one was longer. He mentioned a mutual acquaintance, her friend Dana, who still occasionally saw Craig through a work connection, and he mentioned that he knew things were different now, that she had someone in her life, and he seemed to feel this gave him a kind of urgency. He did not say Owen's name. He had learned it somewhere and declined to say it, which was somehow worse. The third call, she answered. "What do you want, Craig?" "I told you, I know what you said in the voicemail. I'm asking you directly. What do you want?" There was a pause. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted slightly, less rehearsed, something else underneath it. "I want to see Lily." "You haven't seen Lily in 3 years. She was 4 the last time you." I know that. I'm trying to fix that." "Why now?" Another pause. "Things are different. I'm more stable. I have." He stopped. "Then I heard you're seeing someone serious." Callie said nothing. "I just think she deserves to know who her father is, before someone else." "Stop." She kept her voice flat. She had learned to keep her voice flat when it mattered. "Lily is 7 years old. She stopped asking about you at 5. I did not tell her to stop. She simply stopped because children understand more than we give them credit for, and she understood that you were someone who wasn't there." She looked out the window. "You don't get to walk back into her life because I found someone who is. I'm her father. You're her biological father. There's a difference, and you made that difference yourself." He was quiet. "Then I'll take this to court if I have to. I have rights." Something cold moved through her. "Then consult a lawyer," she said, "and have them contact me." She hung up. Her hands were shaking. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time, the phone face down in front of her. Lily was at school. The apartment was quiet in the wrong way again. She called Owen that night. She had told herself she would figure out what to say first, would wait until she had processed it, would not make him part of the mess until she knew how bad the mess was going to get. She had told herself all of this by the time she picked up the phone and called him anyway. She told him everything. He listened. She heard him go very still on the other end, not silent, still. There was a difference. When she finished, he said, "How are you doing right now, tonight?" "I don't know yet." "Okay, that's okay." A pause. "Can I tell you something?" "Yes." "I've been in situations where I had to deal with people who use vulnerability as leverage. It's a particular kind of manipulation, the kind that comes in sounding like remorse." His voice was quiet but even. "He's not calling because he wants to be a father. He's calling because something shifted in your life that he perceives as a threat to something he thought he still had a claim on. That's different. And the courts understand that difference. You don't know that." "No, but I know a good family attorney. She's in this city. I'd like to give you her name." Callie closed her eyes. "Owen." "Not charity," he said before she could. "Not rescue. Just, I know someone who can help you protect Lily, and I want you to have that name. What you do with it is yours." She exhaled slowly. "You preempted me." "I've learned to read the pauses, a beat smaller. Please let me help with this. Not because you can't handle it alone. You obviously can. But because you don't have to." She sat with that for a moment. She had spent 6 years perfecting the art of handling things alone. She had gotten very good at it. She had mistaken that skill for the only option available to her. "Okay," she said. "Okay." The attorney's name was Jean Kowalski. Callie called her the next morning. Jean was matter-of-fact and thorough in a way that reminded Callie of Dr. Figueroa, which she decided was a good sign. She reviewed the situation, the absence, the timeline, the nature of the contact, and told Callie that Craig's position was weak, that sporadic contact claims were difficult to establish when the pattern was one of consistent absence, and that what Lily needed most right now was stability, documented, routine, unremarkable stability. "Continue your life exactly as it is," Jean said. "That's your strongest argument." Craig sent 2 more texts in the following days, both of which Callie forwarded to Jean without responding. The texts became less threatening and more confused, which Jean said was typical. By the end of the second week, Craig had stopped. She told Owen it was quieter. He said good. He didn't say "I told you" or make it about himself. She noticed this. February came. Owen flew back. He stayed for 4 days. On the second afternoon, a Saturday, they took Lily to the Natural History Museum, the one on Calvert Street with the full dinosaur skeleton in the main atrium. Lily walked under it slowly, head tilted back, the way Callie had watched her walk under things she found enormous and important. She did this with very tall trees and very old bridges and her grandmother's bookcase, and Callie had always thought it was one of the truest things about her daughter, that capacity for awe, unhurried by self-consciousness. Owen walked beside her, also looking up. "Do you think it was scared?" Lily asked. Not to either of them specifically, just to the air. "I think it probably didn't have room for scared," Owen said. "Being that big. Every day was probably just being." Lily considered this. "That sounds lonely." He looked at her. "Maybe. Or maybe it just felt like enough." Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at her mother. Then back at the skeleton. "I think it was okay," she decided. "I think it was okay in the end." They got hot chocolate from the museum cafe afterward and sat at a table near the window, Lily between them, her coat still buttoned because she had refused to take it off on principle. She was drawing something on a napkin with a pen she had produced from her pocket. Callie watched her from the side without saying anything. Eventually Lily slid the napkin toward Owen. It was 3 figures, small and approximate, a tall one, a medium one, and a small one with big hair that was clearly meant to be Lily. Above them, in 7-year-old printing, USAT, the Museum. Owen looked at it for a moment. Then he looked at Callie. She looked back. Neither of them said anything. She folded the napkin small and placed it in her pocket. She would keep it, she already knew. She would put it in the drawer where she kept the things that mattered. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Owen sat across from her at the kitchen table again. The same table, the same tea. Different February. "I found a space," he said, "for the office, 2 blocks from the river. It needs work, but it's right." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "When?" "6 months, maybe 5." She nodded slowly. "And you're sure?" "I've been sure for a while." He looked at her directly. "I want to be where you are, and I want to do it right, not fast, not rushed, but present, here." He paused. "I know I can't walk in and be her father. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want to be someone she can count on. Someone you can count on, and I want to earn that however long that takes." She looked at him for a long moment. She was good at reading people. She had been good at it for a long time. She believed him. "Then stay," she said. Not dramatically, not like a declaration, like someone finally deciding to stop bracing for a door to close. He reached across the table. She put her hand in his. The kitchen was warm. The city outside was dark and ordinary. Lily slept in the next room, probably dreaming of dinosaurs. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was the kind of more that she had stopped knowing how to expect and had finally, slowly allowed herself to receive. 6 months later, Owen Mercer moved to the city. He didn't move in. She hadn't asked him to. Not yet, and he hadn't pushed. But he was 3 miles away in a bright-windowed apartment near the river. And on Saturdays he picked Lily up, and they went to the farmer's market and came back with strange vegetables neither of them could identify, and a running debate about which dinosaur would have made the best farmer. Callie went to work. She came home. She slept in a bed that felt like hers again, in an apartment that was warm, in a life that was being rebuilt, not from desperation but from choice. One evening in October, the three of them were sitting on the floor of Lily's room, building a model volcano kit that Owen had found at a science museum gift shop in Seattle and brought back on his last trip. It was more complicated than the packaging suggested. There was baking soda involved. Things had gotten slightly out of control. Lily was covered in plaster dust and completely happy about it. "This is your fault," Callie told Owen, gesturing at the kitchen towel she was now wearing as an apron. "I stand by it," he said, handing Lily a small paintbrush. "It's going to erupt," Lily announced with the certainty of someone who had done significant research. "Like Krakatoa." "Maybe let's aim lower," Callie said. "Kilauea," Lily offered. "Sure," Owen said. "Kilauea. We can do Kilauea." Callie looked at him across the top of Lily's head. He looked back. He was covered in plaster dust, too. He was smiling the way he smiled when he forgot to be careful about it, open and unguarded and entirely, unmistakably real. She had spent a long time waiting for something to go wrong, waiting for the other shoe, waiting for the quiet to be the wrong kind. It wasn't. Lily's volcano erupted mostly sideways, coating the carpet in a way that was going to require some work, and the three of them laughed for a long time on the floor of a small apartment in a city that had, against all reasonable expectation, turned out to be exactly the right place to be. I keep thinking about that vending machine moment. How close Callie came to pressing B7 and losing $1 and walking away, and how Owen was just standing there, a stranger with cold hospital coffee, warning her off a broken button. That's it. That's where it started. Not with grand gestures or perfect timing. Just a small, ordinary act of paying attention to someone nearby. I think that's how most real things start. Not with a spark, but with a person who notices. What strikes me most about Callie isn't the hardship, though Lord knows there was plenty of it. It's the fact that she kept showing up with her whole self even when she had every reason not to. She handed a man better coffee when she didn't have to. She sat down in that waiting room because she noticed someone sitting too still for too long. She gave more than her shift required, more than her job description covered, more than anyone was watching for. And I think that's the thing. The way we behave when no one's keeping score is the most honest version of who we are. Callie's character wasn't something she performed. It was something Owen witnessed, quietly, over and over again, until he couldn't look away. There's a cause and effect at work in this story that has nothing to do with luck. Owen didn't fall for Callie because she was in the right place at the right time. He fell for her because she was the kind of person who used her lunch break to help a stranger and then went back to work hungry. That's not coincidence drawing people together. That's character doing it. And then there's the way she handled Craig. She didn't fall apart and she didn't pretend it wasn't happening either. She thought it through. She made the call she needed to make. She let Owen in. Not because she was desperate, but because she was finally smart enough about her own life to know that receiving help isn't weakness. It took real clarity to understand that. The kind of clarity you don't get from easy years. You get it from hard ones if you're paying attention. I think about Lily drawing those 3 stick figures on a napkin at the museum cafe and sliding it across the table without a word. 7 years old, and she already understood something that takes most adults decades to figure out. That family isn't just biology, it's presence. It's the person who shows up, who stays, who answers the question about dinosaurs like it's the most important thing you've asked all day. Owen earned that napkin. He earned it slowly, without demanding credit, without rushing the timeline. There's something worth sitting with in that. The idea that the things most worth having tend to resist being grabbed at. They come to the people who are patient enough to let something real develop, disciplined enough not to force it, and honest enough to say clearly what they want and then wait. Callie spent years surviving. Owen spent years building. Lily spent years watching. And somehow, on a Tuesday morning near a broken vending machine in a hospital lobby, all of that converged into something that felt, by the end, less like a love story and more like a proof that how you live your ordinary days is the thing that determines what finds you on the extraordinary ones. That volcano erupting sideways all over the carpet is still, I think, the best possible ending. Not perfect, not clean, just real, and loud and full of laughter. That's the whole thing right there.